What is going on? Today marks the end of the bulking series. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll the intro. And before we get started, please be sure to click that like button, hit subscribe and all of that BS. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and recap the last 12, 13 weeks. 90 days ago, I was weighing in at 167.4 pounds. As of this morning, my weight's looking around 177 pounds. However, that's not truly an accurate measurement. If you watched my last video, which was me testing all of my 1-rep maxes, you know I'm actually sitting at about 180 pounds. However, this morning I was kind of doing some errands and getting some things done, so I didn't really get my first meal in until later on in the day, which means I stayed fasted for about 12 hours. So I would say that a more accurate representation of where my weight is when I'm waking up is probably closer to 180 pounds. Now, if you watched episode 0 of this bulking series, you might have seen the before photos or video that I took previously, kind of showing me in a non-flexed and flexed position, as well as, kind of just moving around and showing my overall physique. You can also see here, I did the same thing, kind of just similarly replicate what I did previously, and you can definitely tell that I've put on some weight. Some of it is going to be water weight, some of it's going to be fat, but overall I do think that there is some muscle to show for this bulk. From an aesthetic standpoint, my hope is that in a couple of weeks I can start a cut, and when that cut is done, I look a little bit bigger than when I did previously, when I first started the series, or even, about 2 years ago whenever I was pretty lean. And of course, if you've been following the series, you know that it wasn't just about aesthetics from the bulking perspective, it was actually about hitting some PRs. And if you watched my last video, you know that I managed to do that. I benched 275 for a pause rep, and I also managed to squat 405. And prior to that video, I actually deadlifted 455 pounds, which brings me closer to my, lifetime PR goal, which is 475 pounds. That means that, 475 is relatively in reach, considering the fact that I managed to hit just 20 pounds, short of that goal. So from a strength perspective, I feel like I really managed to close the gap on lifetime PRs, and maybe realize that it's probably time to start adjusting those numbers and making them even bigger. But if I choose not to do that, then I still have, this series to look back on and kind of, good reminder to prove to myself that I was able to not just set a goal, but accomplish it in a relatively short amount of time. Also, if you didn't see that PR video, please be sure to do so. I think there's a lot of good content in there. It's about 20 minutes long, so it's a little bit more of a long form video, but I do think that it really shows some of the progress that I've made, especially, dating back to November, whenever something like 405 pounds on a deadlift was somewhat of a struggle. At this point in time, I'm regularly able to move 425 pounds, which for me going into this was a big accomplishment, and to hit 455 pounds is a huge step. Also, not gonna lie, it flopped pretty hard in the first 3 days, so I'm hoping to get the views up a little bit. So as far as strength goes, I'll kind of leave it at this. I pretty much plateaued, for a year or two, and I really wasn't able to break that 405 mark on deadlift. My bench actually got weaker, and my squat was relatively the same. I mean, you could argue that it was stronger because I was sitting at a lower body weight, but I will say that this bulk really opened up my eyes to what I'm capable of whenever I really step forward and push for, new PRs, and I'm not solely focused on aesthetics. All of that combined was a humble reminder on how important it is to have real goals when it comes to your fitness journey, especially if you're looking to, add size, whether it's muscle or strength numbers. If you want to increase anything when it comes to fitness, it's important to have goals, write them down, and remind, yourself to kind of take the leap and really branch out and try new things. Also, this isn't my only time being at 180 pounds. I should mention that because I'll say that this is probably the best I've looked at 180 pounds. I feel like my abdominals are more visible, my arms are still bigger than they were before, and my back overall feels like it's more visible from the front, which is always a good sign. So I would say that from the aesthetic standpoint, it's still relatively successful. I'm just not super lean at 180 pounds. And of course, all of that to say, this is a subjective measurement. Even if you're measuring, your arms or whatever it is, at the end of the day, the way that you look is going to be subjective from one person to the next. So overall, was it worth it? And that's a valid question. I think for me personally, it was. I got stronger, I got bigger, I hit lifetime PRs, and now I'm looking more towards the future to see how far I can push things. And overall, I feel like I did it the right way. I wasn't just relying on the dirty bulk. I was eating a lot of whole foods, relying a lot on shakes, I will say that, but for the most part, it was relatively clean calories. But after 90 days, I think I'm just ready to kind of call it. Looking more towards the future, I'm thinking, I can maintain my weight for a couple of weeks and kind of just see if I can manage to get a little bit stronger. But I also want to kind of switch up the content here and start doing things like challenge videos again, because I really enjoyed those in the past. And I also want to, kind of branch out and eventually go back on a cut, because I feel like being a little bit leaner and a little bit more athletic is more beneficial for the things that I want to do in the summer, like hiking. But with that said, I want to make sure that I'm cutting slowly so I can see some residual results of the bulk, hopefully adding some muscle to my frame, since it has been a while since I've bulked at all. But we'll see. So that's going to be it for today's video for the most part. I will say that I do have another video dropping on Thursday. That's just going to be the time lapse of day 1 to day 90 of my physique. I'll also be posting a short. Both videos will be extremely short, so if you get a chance, please be sure to check that out. And of course, if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you. Peace and love, all that good stuff. And until next time, keep it together.